Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you with another deck profile, and for today's video we'll be doing an updated Fiendsmith Dark World list. Now, when it comes to this specific deck, it's kind of the exact opposite of the Danger Dark World list in the fact that instead of trying to go for like an all or nothing strategy in the form of the Sell the Hand loop, we actually have many different strategies being able to coherently exist and honestly complement each other to the point where you will often at times find yourself with just too many situations or too many plays to go with, which, can be good or bad depending on the player. But I feel like having a deck like this that just has so many different avenues of play allows you to express yourself fully as a player. And those tend to be like my favorite kind of decks to play. So yeah, this deck is honestly just super cool with like its uses and how it can just play into so many different boards and even like hand traps, right? Which would normally completely devastate this deck, depending on how many you get hit by, can just sometimes not even matter because we have always an additional engine to fall back on just in case things get a little too hairy. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into it. As always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, and the first card we're going to be playing is, of course, Genta Gateway of Dark World, which, regardless of which version I'm playing, is always going to be played at 3, as it is the best starter in the deck, right? You just get to discard it with its own effect, and then you get to search the deck for any copy of the Gates of Dark World that you happen to be playing. And then once you have access to the gates, that's going to start discarding and drawing cards, just allowing you to dig even deeper into your deck until eventually you have just too much advantage for the opponent to overcome. So, as if being the perfect starter wasn't already good enough, its other effect allows it to turn into a phenomenal extender as well, as when this card is banished and you control a face-up Dark World card, which you normally will because you're banishing it off the Gates of Dark World, you're able to special summon it. Now, you can only special summon this card, period, once per turn, and that includes like with other cards as well, right? So, if you have like a Saryuja on the field, you can't special summon this card from your hand. Or if you have like a number 62 Garrus the Timeless on the field, you can't bring it back from the grave. It's just one special summon per turn, that's it. But that's perfectly fine, right? Because once it hits the field with its own effect or any other effect, you can either bounce it back to your hand through the use of cards like Rainbow and Grapha, or you can just leave it on the field to become fodder for Exceed or Link plays. But point is, 3 Genta, gotta play it. Then to go with our 3 Genta, we're playing 3 Snow Unlight of Dark World, which, when this one is discarded, just allows us to search our deck for any Dark World card. Really simple, really straightforward stuff. And that's it for the 3 ofs, which may be a little controversial once you see this card at 2, being 2 Rainbow Overking of Dark World. So basically, in every Dark World list, this card is going to be played at 3, right? But with the way that this deck functions, you honestly don't even really need it because it's very easy to just access this card whenever you want, right? As we're going to be playing plenty of cards in the main deck and the extra deck that we'll get to eventually. I don't want to spoil just quite yet, but which means that we don't need to hard draw this or search it out as often as possible. And 2 is like the perfect number, as that means that you're not going to lose it to something like a Bestial or a DD Crow if they happen to hit it, because they're playing that, right? But as for what it does, it's obviously a phenomenal card. You just discard it. You get to search your deck for any level 5 or higher Dark World monster except itself. And when it's in the graveyard, it can bounce back any level 7 or lower Dark World monster you control back to your hand to summon itself. So it's a card that basically just allows you to replenish your hand and gather even more resources to start discarding even more cards. But like I said, obviously great card, but I just don't feel the need to play it at more than 2, at least in this build. And then to go with our 2 rainbows, we're playing 2 Grapha Dragon Lord of Dark World, which its discard effect is just to pop a card on the opponent's side of the field, which honestly doesn't really matter all that much. What we really care about with this is, much like Rainbow, it's the original bounce back to hand to special summon from the graveyard. However, it doesn't share the same restriction of level 7 or lower. It just can't go Grapha for Grapha, but that means every other Dark World monster is fair game to be bounced back to the hand in order to summon this card from the grave and just replenish it that way. So if we happen to get the Rainbow in the graveyard with other cards, we can just bounce it back with Grapha and then discard it that way to get access to other cards. So, really simple stuff. Then for the final Dark World monster that we're playing, we're going to be going with 2 Silva Warlord of Dark World. So this is where you typically see people play either Lucent or Gold as well, but I typically just go with Silva because I just feel that it synergizes the best with cards like our Grapha, right? So even if our hand is completely abysmal, as long as we can get to the Grapha fusion on the field at some point, we can just discard this even during the opponent's turn by negating something and then force them to get rid of 2 of their precious cards, which when you're playing against like a deck like such as Dark World, you're basically going to need every single card that you get. So having to go -2 is extremely detrimental, and that's literally the main reason why I play this over the other 2. So yeah, 2 Silva, and that's perfectly fine as is. And that's for the Dark World stuff. Now, as for the other parts of the engine when it comes to the monsters that we're going to be playing, we have 2 Fiendsmith Engravers, 1 Lacrima of the Crimson Tears, and one Fable Larry, which basically just makes up the entirety of our Fiendsmith engine as well as our Light Fiend engine. We're not going to be playing Fabled Raven just because I never really find myself in a position where I would want to summon it, if I'm being honest with you guys, which I know sounds crazy, right? This is a Dark World deck, you want to discard everything. You don't really use your normal summon normally, but I don't know, it just feels so unneeded in so many situations. And the only time where Fabled Raven would actually be really good is if you just hard draw it, which, I mean, at that point, it could be literally anything else. And there's no guarantee that what you have in your hand is going to be beneficial to want to be discarded, right? So, while obviously, yeah, it's a very ignorant card, it's just, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of it. And I feel like this is more than enough. So, yeah. 2 Engraver, 1 Lacrima, 1 Larry. That's it for that. And then we are going to be playing a couple of danger monsters just to help us discard a couple more cards as consistently as possible. And by consistently, I mean randomly. So we have our 1 Danger Bigfoot, which, you know, either summons itself to draw a card while discarding something else, or it destroys a card on the opponent's side of the field. So typically you don't want to discard this one because its effect just doesn't do anything. 1 Danger Nessie, which is what's going to allow us to search our deck for any danger monster if it happens to be discarded. 1 Danger Mothman, which basically becomes Dark World Dealings when it's discarded. And then the 2 important ones are actually going to be Danger Tsuchinoko, which provides you with a free level 3 body, no matter what, and Danger Jackalope, which either provides you with a level 3 body or brings out another danger monster from the deck, which allows you to go for like a Link or an Exceed play. And the reason why these 2 matter the most is because obviously they give you a guaranteed body, which lets you play with and just gives you ample fodder for whatever play you may need. But that's it for that. I don't want to put too much of a focus on that because this is not a luck-based deck like the Danger Dark World list. We want to be able to take full advantage of our cards as often as possible, but just sometimes we need that little extra push to be able to do what we do. And then for the final monster lineup, we're going to be playing the Tour Guide engine as our premier normal summon of choice. And this is also the main reason why I don't want to play Fabled Raven, because 10 out of 10 times I would 100% rather summon Tour Guide than Fabled Raven, just because it generates so much advantage on its own, as it really just does get you anything, right? So it can either bridge you into your Dark World engine pretty much almost immediately, or it can also bridge you entirely into your Fiendsmith engine, because we are going to be playing Mellow Melody the Brass Djinn as our Light Fiend from the extra deck of choice. But I'll go over more why this card is just so impactful in this deck, like the deck or the how to play video that I'm hopefully going to post tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know yet. But yeah, like 3 Tour Guide just lets you pretty much do whatever you want. And if it resolves, the game is basically wrapped up. And then what you're going to be summoning off the Tour Guide is going to be Buyo the Dawn's Light. So this card, even if you hard draw it, is still perfectly fine because it's an extender, right? You can just special summon it from your hand by negating a face-up fiend monster that you control, which we don't really care about most of their effects on the field anyways, so that's perfectly fine for us. But where this card truly shines is its graveyard effect, where when it goes to the graveyard, it's able to search your deck for the Mutiny in the Sky, which is a fusion spell that just puts fiends and zombies from your graveyard back into your deck to summon something from the extra deck. And we play some pretty ignorant cards that we can bring out with this guy. So yeah, just having a searchable fusion card that pretty much allows us to, once again, do whatever we want is greatly appreciated. And then for the final monster, we're going to be playing 1 Versago the Destroyer. So just in case you already have like a Buyo in your hand or whatever, we have another additional option in Versago that we can bring out. And this literally just lets us go into even more fusions, right? And the main one that we typically want to bring out with this would be something like Chlorless, which just allows us to completely board wipe the opponent. So hopefully you don't draw it, but you know, that's not always going to be the case. We'd much rather keep it in the deck so that we can bring it out off of cards like Tour Guide and some other things that we play in the extra deck. But with that, that's the main deck when it comes to the monster lineup, and now we can finally go to the spell and trap lineup. Now that we're finally on the spell and trap lineup for the deck, we're going to be starting off with the only spell we're playing at 3, being the Gates of Dark World, because it allows me to discard and draw cards as often as possible. And it's not like we're short on fodder, right? As we have the entire Dark World engine that happens to be a fiend, and then we also have the entire Fiendsmith engine, the Tour Guide engine, which includes Tour Guide, Buyo, and Versago. And point is, you're going to have ample fodder to be able to resolve this card as often as possible. So you don't need to be worrying about that. Then that's it for the 3 ofs. We're not playing any 2 ofs. And then for the 1 ofs, we're going to be starting off with the 1 Triple Tactics Talent to punish our opponent for hand trapping us. Then we're also going to be playing 1 Called by the Grave to potentially stop any super hazardous hand traps. And we're going to be playing 1 Instant Fusion, which we're not going to be doing anything crazy with this. It's essentially just Called by the Grave number 2, because we're just going to be summoning out Millennium Ice Restrict to, once again, potentially stop any hazardous hand trap from just completely stopping us in our tracks. Then for the other one-ofs, we're playing one Dark Corridor only this time. It's a hard once per turn, but I'm constantly moving around on the ratios, as it's obviously still an incredibly powerful card, as it just adds any Dark World card, and then you get to discard any card after that. So it literally turns into whatever you may need it to turn into. Then we're also going to be playing one Dark World a session, just so that we can access a multitude of fusion monsters as well, as this can bring out literally any of our Fiend fusion monsters, which we play plenty of in addition to just like the OG Grapha. And it's pretty important as well for just being able to colorless the opponent during their turn, just to wipe their board and make it so that they just can't break our board, right? Then we're also playing the one Mutiny in the Sky, which is the other fusion spell that we're taking advantage of, that we get to search off of Buyo. We're playing one Foolish Burial in the main deck, which is one of the main reasons also why I decided not to play 3 Rainbow, because like I said, we play plenty of options to be able to send that card to the graveyard to begin with, even if we don't end up hard drawing it. And Foolish Burial, it just happens to be one of those, and it comes up a lot more often than you may think, where you want to send something like a Grapha or a Rainbow to the graveyard. And we also have plenty of other choices as well now, right? As we can send Versago, or we can send Buyo as well, just to be able to have as many options as possible. Then to help finish off the Fiendsmith engine, we're also going to be playing the one track to add any light fiend, which is typically just going to be adding Lurie, or in certain situations as well, you can add the Lacrima instead, and then you just discard any card, and that includes your Dark World cards, so you can trigger them that way. And then one Fiendsmith Sanct as like the other, it's literally just Hornet drones, so you just add this card, and then it provides you with the full Fiendsmith engine anyways, except this one doesn't hard lose to Droll Lockbird like Track does, so yeah, pretty cool card. And that's it for the spells. And then for the traps, we're just playing the one Fiendsmith in Paradise, so that we have another layer of interaction during the opponent's turn that they're going to struggle to fight through. And with that, that's the main deck. Should be 40 cards like always, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now that we're finally on the extra deck portion of the video, I just want to start by talking about the Fiendsmith engine itself, because if you're committing to the Fiendsmith engine, then that typically means that you're going to be losing a third of your extra deck to it, which in a deck like Dark World is pretty important, right? Because you need as many extra deck spots as you can, because there's just so many good cards that you want to be able to take advantage of. But as a result, that means that we're going to have to make some pretty tough choices with the inclusion of what cards that we want to play. But I feel like I found like a pretty good sweet spot overall, that what we included and what we didn't include doesn't really matter all that much. But, there's no way that this is 100% correct, the best way to play the extra deck. So I definitely recommend like experimenting or whatever, just to find like ratios that work for you instead. But with that in mind, we're going to be starting off with the Exceed monsters first, and we're only going to be playing 2 of them this time. So we have the one Mellow Melody, the Brass Djinn, which is literally just there to be able to allow us to access our full Fiendsmith combo as long as we get 2 level 3s on the field, which, I mean, we play Tour Guide, Buyo, Versago, and the Tsuchinoko and the Jackalope, so it's not that difficult to pull off. And then we're playing the one DDD Wave Hiking Caesar, just so we can have like our perfect end board piece for the Fiendsmith engine to take advantage of as well, as this just gives you double Solemn Warning even through like the worst possible conditions that you may be facing whenever your opponent like hand traps you to oblivion. So yeah, Caesar and Mellow Melody, the only 2 Exceeds that we play. And then for the links, we have the one Fiendsmith Requiem, which just allows us to basically just access any Fiendsmith monster from our deck, as well as turn any light Fiend monster into a level 6 Fiend in the form of Necroquip Princess. We're going to be playing one Cherubini, Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss as well, and this is probably the most cuttable card, and the reason why I say that is because we're literally only playing this because we happen to be playing the Versago. If we were not playing Versago, this would be the first card gone. But even so, by playing this with the Versago, that basically means that whenever we access a card like Tour Guide from the Underworld, we're pretty much going to be able to get access to whatever fusion monster we may need, right? As we'll go Tour Guide, bring out the Buyo, send both of them into the Cherubini. Cherubini's effect will activate as Chainlink 2 because it sends for cost, so even if they like Veiler or Ash it, which they can't actually Ash it because its effect is to boost, not to send, but if they Veiler or Impermit, it genuinely doesn't matter because we still get the Versago, and then we chain block the Buyo as well to ensure that we can get the Mutiny in the Sky. And then the Mutiny in the Sky will in turn provide us with a fusion monster, whether it's like Grapha or any of the other guys that we happen to be playing. So yeah, while it's not needed, it absolutely changes the way that the deck functions. So yeah, pretty cool card. And then for the other Link 2s, we're playing one Muckraker from the Underworld, which, I mean, like, obviously it's a phenomenal card, right? You get to discard anything and then bring back a Fiend monster from the graveyard, and it discards as part of the effect. So it will be able to trigger all your Dark Worlds as well. The only thing is that it does lock you into Fiends for the rest of the turn, and it also cannot be used as link material the turn that it's summoned, so there are some pretty hefty restrictions when it comes to playing something like Muckraker from the Underworld, but all of that really needs to be like considered about playing this is that you just save it for like the end of your combo or after you've been hit by like a million hand traps already, and you just need to bring back something, right? But yeah, it's still just a great card, but you just have to be a little bit careful when using it. And then for the other Link 2s, we're playing one Fiendsmith sequence, which just takes one Light Fiend, which you play in the form of Engraver, and then you can shuffle back your resources from your graveyard to be able to special summon a Fiend from your extra deck, which is basically all of our fusions. And that means that we can summon out cards that aren't just like Fiendsmith Desiree, right? So we have plenty of choices to make with our sequences as well. But truth be told, we don't really want to go into this unless we're forced to, if I'm being honest. And it's still like a powerful card, but yeah, once again, this is one of those cards that can definitely be played around with. Then we're playing one SP Little Knight as just like a phenomenal way to be able to out whatever we want and just be like a general nuisance when it hits the field because it just exerts so much pressure, right? As whenever your opponent says to activate a card or effect, you can chain the Little Knight, banishing itself and another monster on the field until the end of the turn. So even if they are able to clear your board, they aren't able to get rid of everything because the SP Little Knight and whatever you happen to banish will be coming back at the end of the turn. So yeah, great card. And that's it for the Link 2s. We don't play any Link 3s. And then for the one Link 4 that we are going to be taking advantage of, it's going to be a Baoku, the Lightless Shadow. This is going to be basically one of like our main end board pieces. And both of its effects are really solid, right? So you either get to discard a card, which unfortunately is for cost, so that means it will not trigger your Dark World monsters, but then from there, once you discard the card, you either get to pop a card on the opponent's side of the field, or you get to reborn any of your lights or darks from the graveyard, which is literally every single one of your monsters. And yeah, like this card is extremely flexible, and because it banishes itself when it reborns, that means that the opponent, even if they at some point like do something to you, this card will still be coming back and just be like another general nuisance on the follow-up turn. So yeah, this card is just really cool with like the applications that it provides you with. So yeah, one about the Lightless Shadow. And that's it for the links. And then for the fusions, which we play plenty of, we're playing the one Millennium Eyes Restrict, which is the card that we're going to be summoning off of our instant fusion. And like I said, it's basically just like our third copy or our second copy of Call by the Grave. But the cool thing about Millennium Eyes Restrict in this situation is that because we play cards like a Baoku, the Lightless Shadow, right, is that even during the end phase when this card gets destroyed by instant fusion, we can still bring it back because it's been properly fusion summoned. And if you happen to bring it back with the About, that means that you basically just gave yourself another free negate. So, we got a lot of really cool uses through the use of Millennium Eyes Restrict. Then for the other fusions, we play the Necroquip Princess so that we can turn cards like Larian and Lacrima into level 6 Fiends. Fiendsmith Desiree, which is something that we don't really want to summon, but more so use it for the Fiendsmith in Paradise so that we can take advantage of its graveyard effect to interrupt the opponent. One Aerial Eater, which is literally just Foolish Burial, but from the extra deck. We don't really care about the banishing from the grave to come back, if I'm being honest, because we don't really want to waste too many resources and burn through them that way. But the choice is there. We're playing one Duke of Demise, which is probably my favorite of all the fusions that we play, just because it's really flexible with the way that you can use it, right? As it provides you with an additional normal summon, which right off the bat, great. And then when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to add back any level 4 or lower Fiend or zombie monster from your graveyard. So it's great at just allowing you to recycle key cards that you normally wouldn't be able to, like your Genta, for example. So if you have a Genta in the grave, you can add that back and then discard it in order to search out like another Gates of the Dark World and so on and so forth. So yeah, this card, really cool. Then for the Dark World fusions, we're playing Grapha, Dragon Overlord, or Dark World as a pseudo negate. It's not a real negate, but it does change cards' effects. And so if your opponent activates a normal spell, a normal trap, or a monster effect, you can change that effect to you discard a card. And I mentioned it earlier that when you pair it with Silva, you're going to be able to get its secondary effect to loop 2 cards from your opponent's hand. So yeah, pretty cool card. And then lastly, we're playing the one Chlorless Chaos King of Dark World, which we're pretty much only going to be summoning during the opponent's turn to be able to clear their entire board when it's summoned. And it can also just become untargetable if you happen to like want to use its effect to discard a card, which, I mean, it's a Dark World deck, so you're going to be discarding things at some point, right? And with that, that's the Fiendsmith Dark World deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!